Hey all, your OS reviews. In this video, we're taking a quick look at the HOVERAir X1 ProMax. This is a smart drone that has a built-in gimbal camera that can detect your face and follow you around, acting as a virtual cameraman. Perhaps if you're vlogging outdoors, riding your bike, it will just follow you from behind, which is actually pretty cool. Kind of like having a Osmo Pocket, except in a flying drone form, and the footage should be stabilized because of the gimbal. Impressively, the X1 Pro Max also records up to 8K resolution at 30 FPS, although for a faster frame rate including 120 or 60 FPS, you can dial down to 4K instead, also supporting 10-bit HDR. Now there's an asterisk at the end because there is a slightly more dialed back version called the X1 Pro without the Max at the end that instead caps out at 4K and also doesn't have HDR recording. Similarly, the Max version that we have here, aside from getting up to 8K, also includes 64 gigabytes of built-in system storage, in addition to augmenting that with a micro SD card slot. Furthermore, the Pro Max touts a larger 1/1.3 inch type sensor, which is actually pretty good for a drone camera, coupled with the HDR processing to provide more vibrant looking results even in slightly more low light conditions compared to the regular non-Max version has a smaller sensor closer to 1/2.3 inch type. So the camera performance will be a little stronger on this particular variant. And last but not least, if you're controlling the drone from your phone, the Pro Max features Wi-Fi 6, so offers a little bit faster bandwidth, up to 1.2 gigabits per second wireless data transfer. But aside from that, the functionality as part of the software and sensors are all quite similar, and you have a number of ways of controlling it as well, including an optional remote, in addition to using your phone as a viewfinder remote, or you can just use the drone as is, because there are around 10 built-in pre-programmed flight patterns that you can set up with one click without even connecting to a phone or remote. For example, just having it hover and follow you around, having it spin around you 360 degrees, kind of like a virtual selfie stick, having it fly out and then back into your hands. Those are a couple of examples of the built-in flight patterns, having some obstacle avoidance functionality as well as part of the edge detection. So there's more than just one camera. Of course, the highest quality one will be capturing the footage, but there's also ones located on the back as well as below the drone for detecting its location in space, making it the world's first 8K resolution self-flying selfie-style drone, which takes off directly on your palm, and then when you're ready to have it land again, you just need to put your hand underneath the drone and it will automatically slowly lower back onto your hand and turn off. The camera itself has a 107-degree field of view, which is relatively wide, and here is the aforementioned optional remote control that can attach a phone down below as well if you choose to do so and you want to have the physical tactility of button controls, or you can just use the touchscreen on your phone, or again just the drone itself. And interestingly, the optional remote has a small OLED screen of its own that you can use to monitor some basic status, measuring 1.78 inches. It's a small touchscreen that you can also use in a couple of different positions, having more of a modular design of its own. So the engineering here I think is pretty clever, since it also claims to be relatively durable in terms of you can use it even in extreme weather conditions, including -20 degrees Celsius, and it should still function. That is, if you're going skiing, for example, and afterwards all of the videos and photos that you take can be easily synced over to the companion app wirelessly on your phone using iOS or Android. Sensors are also rated to work even in more challenging terrains, including across water, grass, snow, so on and so forth. It shouldn't be fooled by differences in the texture and color of the ground underneath, as you can see here. In fact, it's rated to fly up to 18,000 feet and withstand up to 24 per mile wind speeds, so the drone can move pretty quickly up to 30 miles per hour for quicker action panning shots. And all of this is powered by, again, a quote-unquote neural processing unit for detecting your motion and keeping you locked into place as it's doing some of the tracking work. Last but not least, because the camera is motorized, you can change the pan and tilt as you are flying. In fact, you can even record vertical video as well, in addition to regular horizontal video. Though in this mode, you can see that the resolution will drop a little bit lower. It does do a bit more cropping. The sensor itself captures 12 megapixel still images, and the battery is rated for around 1,920 milliamp hours, which is good for roughly 16 minutes of continuous flying. So battery life is average for a mini-sized drone, though not spectacular. If you pick up a spare battery, as well as a GAN quick charging power bank, for example, maybe you can squeeze out around 30 minutes to an hour of flight time. But again, that's going to be less than a conventional camera that doesn't have a drone component, since the flying propellers are also using a fair amount of electricity and the battery itself. Otherwise, in terms of the range transmission, when you're connecting it to your phone, it can go up to 500 meters away and still control it, compared to using the beacon, which is their proprietary remote control, can last up to 1 kilometer away. And so the remote will unlock increased range. This company called 00 Robotics is based in Hong Kong. Here's the profile view of it folded up. And then the actual inner box is pretty well presented. We have another pattern of the HOVERAir X1 drone itself, presented in a pretty dramatic way right on top. And then further down below, you can scan the QR code to download their companion app, some quick user information. There's a small display built into the Hover drone as well. It's a small OLED screen to give you some status info at a glance. Under the first section here, we have a very well presented user guide. In fact, it's giving me flashbacks of maybe Nokia style phones from the 2000s when documentation user manuals were still very dense, plus some interesting decals or stickers that you can use to decorate the drone, personalizing the way it looks, which shows some pretty nice attention to detail. Some of these are more sports oriented, whereas other ones are a bit more colorful. The drone itself also includes a extra carrying pouch, which is microfiber and having the Hover logo on there, since the size there can collapse and fold into something more compact, in addition to a sample material of the frame, because they claim it's going to be super durable and aerodynamic. It's called HEM hyper-elastic material. Apparently it's developed in-house and will be harder to break because it's not as rigid as regular plastic, as you can see, having some movement and bend to it, which is impressive. That means there is going to be shock absorbency. If it accidentally drops, even though it does have all the sensors to prevent itself from doing that, it shouldn't break quite as easily. And then the final piece in the standard drone packaging is just a USB Type-C to Type-C charging cable. But here's a quick pamphlet of all the optional other accessories that you can find. Again, the default packaging, we just saw the contents there, but some of the combo packs also will give you, again, an extra battery maybe thrown in, 65-watt fast GAN charger, as well as a carrying case. Some bonus packs as you get more fancy even includes ND filters for the lens of the camera, including even a handlebar mount for the remote control you can attach onto a bike as part of the ecosystem. So here we have a couple of those accessories just to take a quick look. Basically, it's their combo case. It's their hard shell carrying case, the largest one that we see over here, which does take up more space, but also adds more protection. If you're a little bit more rough when traveling with it and want to prevent it from getting squished, you can pop in the drone on this side, as well as attach some of the other accessories like cables, which, speaking of, this little component is actually their charging hub, as well as an extra, again, smart battery pack to elongate the flying time. And this can actually charge 2 batteries at the same time, supplying up to 65 watts to each battery and then turning off once battery reaches full. There's also a button that you can click on the very top to gauge the battery life remaining using these 4 LEDs, each one representing 25%, compared to having one inserted into the drone by default. You can also charge it from the drone just by plugging it into the Type-C port from here as another option. And then the final accessory that we have here is going to be the smaller hard shell case containing the optional remote control, which they have named the beacon and joystick bundle, because they give you a couple of different textures or styles of the joystick that you can pick between. For instance, one which is a little bit more soft with these dimples, compared to a sharper style of the joystick that's going to be a little bit more precise. You can choose the height as well as the texture of these, almost like a mechanical keyboard. And again, the controller is really quite unique. I don't think I've seen anything like this before. It's actually detached in 3 separate compartments, the left and right joysticks, as well as the inside here, which is going to be the small display. Attach them horizontally versus vertically, just using the pogo contacts on the very top here. So pretty clever, again, from an engineering point of view. There's also a couple of additional kind of charging adapters that you get for the actual remote, as well as a microfiber cleaning cloth, and even a small lanyard strap is also included, which is pretty thoughtful. So there's a battery built into the right module that then powers the other components once you snap them together like Lego pieces. We simply need to pop it on, it's magnetic, and then give it a little bit of a push here on the 2 sides to lock it into place pretty securely. And then the same thing on the other side. We just need to again pop it on here, clicking on the locks on the side, and afterwards it actually feels pretty steady and firm. So this is the horizontal layout, and then to pop in the phone, if you want to do so, you can just flip it around like so in these 2 movements, and now we have a more comfortable controller layout to hold onto, and then the phone can rest on the inside here. There's a universal grip for attaching any Android or iOS device if desired, although you can just use it as is with the small screen in the middle here as well. Actually not bad, and you can fold it down to a smaller layout when you're traveling or on the go. You'll also find a screen lock button for the touchscreen, and on the very back you can see all the moving joints are crafted out of metal, so pretty robust, as well as now we have a shoulder key and even a scroll wheel. The only thing I will say though is about the controller, because it is having this flip out design. When you are using it like this, the edges on the side become a little bit sharper compared to when it is completely folded down, as you can tell there. And so as a result, if you are putting your hands a little bit further up, it does tend to maybe cut into your hands a little bit more. I kind of wish they could have rounded out the corners here for slightly improved ergonomics, maybe something for the next generation revision to consider. So yeah, not bad, and despite all the moving parts, it still feels surprisingly robust. Now taking a closer look at the actual drone, so it is indeed very lightweight because of the plastic materials here being quite hollow and aerodynamic. We have the battery itself that simply pops in and out just by giving it a little bit of a twist there, as well as some controls in the front that you can hold on for a couple seconds to turn it on, and swipe left and right to go through some of the pre-built-in flight patterns, which continues to grow through more software updates. For instance, during launch there were around 10, now there's already around 15 or so. We can see the camera with the built-in gimbal, as well as the propellers, which are folded into half magnetically. When we fully extend it, it has a slightly concaved shape to it as well, which is interesting. On the back, there's also an obstacle avoidance sensor or extra camera, including infrared, and then on the bottom, we have even more obstacle avoidance cameras, and also ones for detecting the proximity to your hand, and so if it's a couple of centimeters away, it will automatically land onto your hand when it's been detected. Actually, not that much heavier or larger than an average size smartphone these days. By the way, you can tap on the middle key there once when the drone is off to gauge the battery percentage. You see a little bit of flickering there. That's just due to the interference of the camera with the OLED screen. It doesn't actually show up in person. Now we can long hold for a couple more seconds to turn it completely on. You'll hear the center fan there for cooling activate, but the propellers aren't on yet. It just says hover and then takes a couple of seconds there to initialize. Once you hear a chime, it means it's ready to go, and the current mode follow. Motors of the camera gimbal are then activated. As you can tell, they're always pointing in a relatively flat position, mitigating some of the shakes and wobbles, in combination with electronic image stabilization for processing the footage as well. So we have OIS plus EIS, and the drone does have a built-in loudspeaker to tell you the current status as well. Read it back out loud. Here's an orbit mode that will kind of spin 360 degrees around 1.5 meters in front of you. Bird eye is going to go up to 5 meters or 15 meters or even more. You can customize the distance from the companion app. That will just give you a top-down perspective before landing again. Dolly Track is just going to move forward smoothly. Cycling mode. Indoor follow. 360 spin. So this one will then be spinning in the same position 360 degrees. So it's going to be hovering like this and then spinning by itself to get the entire room within the shot. Also an interesting mode if you're trying to capture a selfie with a group of friends and you don't want to leave someone out of the frame. It can capture a panoramic shot panning slowly using the 360 spin video form. And so the difference with 360 spin and orbit is with the orbit mode, it will actually still be moving and you will be the center of the frame, and it tries to capture a 360 shot around you as the center point. Compared to in the hover mode, the drone is spinning on its own axes instead of actually moving around you. That's actually the main difference between those two. But yeah, what's impressive is that this can be used both indoors and outdoors alike. Now let's start off with the indoor follow mode. It will still produce a little bit of noise though, since there are 4 spinning propellers, so like most drones, just keep that in mind. We'll tap on the middle button there to start, and it will then take a moment basically for the camera to see my face, lock into it, and then I can move around and the drone will follow. Close. Indoor follow. So that was actually pretty stable in terms of tracking me. And also, if there's a group of people around you, it will track onto the first person that it sees during the initial takeoff, using characteristics like the person's shirt, their face, their general body shape to track onto. And that means even if the camera isn't seeing your face, it still knows to track you from behind if you're cycling. And so generally speaking, in my experience, when I tried it with a couple of other people around the same camera, it still locked into me without too many problems. The only thing I will say is, again, it does get a little bit loud because of the propellers if you are flying indoors. And so when you are recording video, which by the way, it does it automatically during the pre-programmed paths that you can select on the drone. So when you're doing something like follow, 360 spin, orbit, it's recording until you put your hand down and land on it. And the footage is just stored in the device's built-in memory for you to sync later on. So those video clips by themselves are actually muted without any sound, since the microphone would be too close to the propellers, making it inaudible. However, the software makes it so that when you are using the remote or using your smartphone, when capturing footage, it uses your phone's microphone or the remote's microphone to still pick up sound with environmental noise cancellation, doing a better than expected job of canceling out the noise of the propellers, although it's using the microphone from here instead of actually on the camera or the drone. So just keep that in mind. As for activating the remote control, we can hold on this for a couple of seconds. There's also a haptic vibration motor inside of the remote as well, and then it will automatically search and pair to the nearby device. Again, it activates the viewfinder mode, so you're able to see the camera there in real time with just maybe a split-second latency like a security camera, but really not bad. And you can instantly tap here to capture an image or also to record video. Some of the icons on the screen, though, are a little bit small. It's a compromise for the more compact design, but you can see if the microphone of the remote has been turned on or not, if it's been successfully linked, also the reception strength, general battery life information will also be displayed as a gauge. And the UI relies on swipes for navigation. For example, go on the edge, we can adjust the ISO, white balance properties manually or use a auto mode. We can swipe down to access any system updates, again muting or unmuting the microphone, as well as changing the joystick control mode. When it comes to remapping the order of the controls, can also be reassigned directly from here. Furthermore, we can tap on the right here to go through the different modes, and you'll see the voice prompt there on the speakers of the drone being read out loud. These are the same modes that we saw there from earlier, in addition to unlocking some even more options like ski modes and also the full manual mode with the joysticks of the remote. Here's also the lock for the touchscreen in action, also working pretty nicely, preventing any accidental triggers. And when you're ready to fly the drone, simply use the left joystick, press on up for a couple of seconds until it's ready to start.
Manual control.
And so that's actually working pretty nicely, quite responsive in terms of the controls. You can change the speed, of course, based on how much you're pressing on the joysticks in terms of the acceleration, giving you more precise control versus a touchscreen in which you can't really change how hard or firm you're pressing. That is one advantage here. And you can also briefly gauge that the picture quality, image quality does look quite good because of that 1/1.3 inch type sensor, a little bit larger than average, and also having some HDR to boost the contrast. So colors actually do have some nice vibrancy and pop to them, even indoors in a slightly more low light condition, still looking surprisingly quite good. Last but not least, let's take a closer look at the HOVERAir X1 app. So if we tap on the middle tab of the app, you can see this is the nearby hover drone, as well as the album can be viewed back just by clicking there. It's in this kind of mesh network view. You can see the memory remaining on the drone storage, as well as the battery percentage on the very top. So if we click on album, this will be transferring over some of the videos and photos, allowing you to play back a snippet of the clip. Again, pretty good in terms of general stabilization, as you can tell, thanks to that gimbal. And furthermore, you can even go into a beautify mode, kind of an auto processing mode to further improve colors and contrast, quickly editing or trimming the video, as well as exporting it onto your phone. And yes, there is batch processing as well by clicking on this tab, allowing you to select multiple images or videos simultaneously for saving or exporting. So overall connectivity has been pretty solid in my testing so far. I didn't really encounter disconnection, so to speak. Transferring things over was also quite fast. You can also use the direct USB cable method if you want to just link it to your computer, USB USB port on a Mac or Windows and transfer files over manually instead of using this wireless method based on your preferences. Also from here, you can trigger the smart preview of what the camera lens is seeing in real time on your phone, as well as the manual control mode on your phone.
Manual control.
So again, similar to on the beacon or remote control there, you can also have the same access over here, although because it's a touchscreen, maybe the acceleration isn't going to be quite as responsive. But general functionality is similar, in fact, a little bit more comfortable because of the bigger screen. You can also see a compass and elevation meter of how far away it is from the ground, as well as the current speed that it's traveling in, as well as some pan tilt and even a 2x digital crop on the camera can be applied as well. So it is pretty fully featured in terms of customization, color profile from being softer versus pro versus more vibrant, typical speed for the controls on the touchscreen, and then the first tab of the companion app also shares some of the footage captured by other community members around the world. You can also choose to share your own clips and creations, kind of like a social media platform of its own among community members if you want to do so and have some more engagement there. But that's completely optional, just to show some of the types of shots that you're capable of achieving on something like this, including even some low light footage. You can see what it's going to be like on a city street, for instance, other scenes which are more awe-inspiring, kind of acting as your virtual cameraman. And then the flight modes tab down below also gives you a quick tutorial of all the different effects that we saw there from earlier, including the hover, zoom out, follow, orbit. You can see the path being represented here in a little bit more clarity using the visuals, as well as, again, ski mode, 360 spin there inside of a maybe restaurant table, indoor follow to avoid any obstacles, so on and so forth. Also, more advanced modes like the manual control requires you to first master some of the basics before you can unlock it. For example, flying it at least 3 times, and then you're able to unlock that particular mode. You can see how many flights you've also achieved in that specific profile if you initiate a session from this particular app. So yeah, overall the UI I think is pretty easy to operate and actually quite fun. Finally, under the Me tab, you're also able to check for firmware updates both for the drone as well as the remote control, which is the beacon, in addition to track your relative position from the device over to the drone as part of the location tracking. So yeah, as shown from those sample clips, it is indeed a really fun process, and it's actually a rare instance where I think the advertisements actually match the reality of what you're getting pretty closely. For example, the stableness of the shots thanks to the gimbal makes things a little bit more cinematic, and that is indeed true. The footage is actually quite colorful and vibrant thanks to the larger sensor coupled with the processing through HDR. So from a video quality perspective, it is actually one of the better performing drones that I've tested out, especially in a more compact, user-friendly form. This is something that I think almost anyone can pick up and start using. I do think maybe in the future, if they come out with more accessories like a perhaps future battery version, which is going to be even higher density, as battery technology continues to grow to allow for even faster charging and even bigger capacity that could potentially allow you to record up to 30 minutes, maybe even an hour on a single go. I think that could be just really convenient, since right now you do have to be a little bit more certain about the specific scenes that you're shooting in to grab the shots you want before kind of topping it up again, similar to most other mini drones in this department since it is still so small, doesn't have as much space for an ultra-large battery. And it's definitely the most polished version of a self-flying or selfie-style drone that I've seen yet. The software as well as the consistency does seem to be improved versus earlier iterations of this type of concept that we've seen a couple of years ago. So pretty cool, all things considered. You can check out more details if you're interested in something like this in the links down below. But for now, that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. That has been the HOVERair X1 ProMax compact folding kind of smart auto follow style mini drone.